So, you're talking about motivation. The guy I went to India with, John, just call him John, he'd actually been on his own the year before, unbelievably. He'd only got as far as Delhi. And it's amazing, back then, obviously there were cameras, but back then people didn't have, unlike now, a fixation with recording the experience. So the only thing he had from his trip he ended up in New Delhi, was him in a gutter in New Delhi, looking fairly squalid. But I was persuaded by him that it would be a good idea to go, because obviously he knew the ropes. Yeah?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, so was listening to kind of like his adventures also like a jumping off point for you to really just...
Yeah, slightly, but my first experience of going abroad was the year before. I went to Greece. And when I was in Greece, I travelled with another guy called Barry. It was noticed probably when certainly maybe at junior school, that he was a very good artist. And Barry, at the time I knew him, was at art college. So I think one of the reasons for going to Greece was to go to the Parthenon and places like that. But Barry, to cut a very long story short, Barry became quite a renowned sculptor. If you go to London, there's quite a few buildings in London where he's done the sculptures. And when I knew him, he was working on Wells Cathedral and shit like that. He now lives in California. We went to Greece, and then again, just to give you an idea of how impetuous we were in Piraeus, which is the big port in Athens, and we saw a boat, and we ended up, to cut a long story short, we ended up travelling third class in the kind of the lower deck of this boat that's kind of gradually went across the Mediterranean, Cyprus and places like that. You were kind of, you could go on deck, don't get me wrong, but it took about 3 days, I think, 3-4 days. And you were kind of down in the hold. The only way the day was broken up, you'd have kind of like a dinner bell, and we'd all queue up, and he'd pass, But we ended up in Israel. And just to give you, as I say, a picture of the time. The big thing about Greece was you could fund your travels by selling your blood. That was a big thing, by selling your blood. I never sold mine personally, but the big thing in Israel at the time, don't forget you're talking, as I say, 1970. The big thing in Israel was you could go on a kibbutz.
What's a kibbutz?
I don't know if you know much about. Well, when the state of Israel was formed, because of the diaspora, you obviously had Israeli people from all over, Jewish people from all over the world, and they basically created from the desert, an agricultural network of farms. Not all kibbutzes are farms, but most were, and the kibbutz is based, or was based then, on socialist principles. Yeah?
Yeah.
So that again was a big thing back in that time. The big thing was you would be anti-capitalist, you'd be anti-consumerist. It was a big thing back in the day for food for free and free concerts and so on and so forth. And the kibbutz was like a democratic socialistic system. And as a Westerner, you could go there, you could sign up, and you had to work, and you received, obviously, your board, your lodgings, and you received a small payment.
So a bit like communes.
Yeah. That's right. And that again is a big thing from that era, that kind of collective living, blah, blah. So we ended up, where did we begin? In Haifa, and we hung around in Haifa for a little while. Then we went to Tel Aviv, and when we got to Tel Aviv, we signed up for the kibbutz. And I remember, like a prat, showing my hands and saying, look at these calluses, I'm a really good worker. Because I was quite a skinny kid then, you see, whereas Barry, he was quite a big, bulky guy. So we signed up for 6 months. by the way. We signed up for 6 months, and
Did you do the whole 6 months?
no, but again, we can have a whole podcast on the Israel
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So we ended up. Don't forget, you're only a couple of years away from the war. What's known as the 7-Day War. But with all due respect, when you are younger, you don't quite realise, particularly if your experience is quite limited, what situation you're actually putting yourself in. I can remember sitting on railway stations in Israel, even then, and you'd see armoured weaponry, tanks and things like that had been damaged, and they're obviously going off to be scrapped or repaired, shit like that. And the kibbutz I was on, it was called Givat Oz, still going now, and Givat Oz was founded, like a lot of these kibbutzes, it was founded by, I think it was Czechs mainly, and it was right in the middle of quite a desert region. And what they'd achieved was absolutely fantastic. Through hard work, it was it was made into it was like an oasis, very fertile. And as I say, we signed up, and our main jobs, I was telling Julie a couple of days ago, the main jobs, we used to pick sunflower seeds, and we used to pick oranges. And when you were promoted, you could go and work in the chair making shop. They used to make chairs out of cane and raffia. I found that these kibbutzes, I don't remember many other English people actually. So you found yourself, which was like a seminal experience, you found yourself with Argentinians and Russians and obviously American, Canadians, blah blah, and a great majority of people, couldn't speak English very well. So going back to, did you see out the 6 months? One of the conditions of signing up, you had to every day attend a class for Yiddish, which is the language. It's the kind of colloquial language of Hebrew is the obviously the more highfalutin language. But I did find that very, very difficult because it was incredible. The person trying to teach you Yiddish had in front of them a whole bunch of people who mainly they couldn't speak English. So it was amazing how they did it. Through sign language and so on. But I did find it quite difficult, and we did feel quite a bit stupid. Do you know what I mean?
Do you still remember any phrases now?
No, I don't really. No, except shalom, of course. But the work, I never minded hard work, by the way. But it was hot. I don't know. I had a feeling as probably a weedy English kid. And being young and having longish hair, I did feel that you did have a bit of stick. Don't get me wrong, you weren't bullied or anything, but when you think of what those people had been through, some of them, because when you're on the kibbutz, they have the kids there, by the way, and the kids are separated from their parents. I don't know if they still do that. They probably don't, but the whole idea was, kids were separated from their parents, and they'd be actually schooled and socialised within the kibbutz, often away from their parents. So my memories are this kibbutz, and again, being naive, it was actually surrounded by sort of 10-foot high fences with razor wire across the top. Mm-hmm. And at night, not every night, they used to have outdoor movies, and I remember, you'd be sitting watching the movie, and there'd be people, armed guards, checking the perimeter. And every so often, weekly, every one of these kibbutzes has air raid shelters. So you'd have an air raid drill. So the siren would go, and the women and kids would be put into these shelters first. It was really, really interesting experience. I had a girlfriend there. She was called Faye Rafalovitz.
Was she English as well?
No, she was Canadian.
Oh, Canadian.
Yeah. But I think she was quite wealthy, actually, because she used to say, when I go back to Toronto, I've got a Ford Mustang. I often wonder what becomes of these people. Yeah. I mean, I'm not being rude or anything, but I have a wonderful memory of Water's very precious then. They had a great big water tower. And I remember climbing up on top of it and being discreet, making love to it on top of this water tower with the most incredible sky.